Hello everybody and welcome back to Learn It Up. Today we'll be studying about unit vectors. So let me just write it down. Unit vectors. So now you may ask, what is a unit vector? So a unit vector is basically a vector which has a magnitude of 1. Magnitude of 1. So now you may ask, wait, if the vector has a magnitude of 1, then why it is useful? So the only thing a unit vector is used for is telling the direction of a vector. The direction of a vector. So let me clarify that with an example. Let me just get the right color. Okay. So example, and before giving this example, I would like to tell you how unit vector is represented. So let's take an example. This is the y-axis, this is the x-axis, and this is the z-axis. X-axis, y and z. So imagine you have been given a vector whose x component is let me represent it by ax, whose y component is ay, and whose z component is az. So if you have to represent this vector which is a and it includes all three of these, it is the magnitude of all three of these vectors, we can write it as a x I cap. And now you may think, wait, what is this I cap thing all about? So this I cap is basically basically tells you that the number following it is the x component of that vector. It's the x component. So like if a number has been given like 5i, this means that 5 is the magnitude of the x component of the vector. And if you don't know about components, I will suggest you to watch my earlier videos. So we can simplify this vector into its unit component form, the vector that has been given here, in this way: a x I cap, and I cap is just a symbol that tells you it's the x component. You can use any other, but I cap is the most widely used. So for the y component we'll write j cap, it's another symbol, and for the z component we'll write k cap. So this is basically how you write a component of a vector in its unit vector form. So these I cap, j cap and k cap, these basically are just symbols that tell you the direction of the number following it. So let's take an example, and three axes have been given, these three, and a vector has been given in this form: 6 I cap plus 7 j cap plus 3 k cap. This is just an example. So this would mean that the vector's x component has a magnitude of 6, its y component has a magnitude of 7, and its z component has a magnitude of 3. So this is very easy. You can easily find out the xy components from the previous video, and I hope you already know that if you study vectors. So the next thing that is very important is finding the magnitude. So if you're given the three components of this vector, ax, ay and az, let me just reduce the thickness. Okay, so now to find the magnitude, it is just like when we find the magnitude of the other vector. So the magnitude of this will be root of the x component squared plus the root of y component squared and you get the idea, the root of the z component squared. So this formula is basically how you find the magnitude of a vector if it has been given in its unit vector form. And if let's take the example, you have been given a vector like this, which has a magnitude 5, and it makes an angle of 60 degree with the x-axis and an angle of 45 degree, let's say, with the z-axis. So basically you can find out its unit vector form by just finding the x component of this vector. The x component will be 5 cos 60, and this will be followed by I cap, which will basically represent the x component of this vector in the form of unit vector form. And you can find out about the y-axis and the z-axis in the same way. So this was all about the basics of unit vector.